kids podcast.
You can go slow.
A kids podcast about.
Hello, my name is Ari and I help produce this show you're listening to. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for being here with us. It means so much that you're choosing to spend your time listening to this show and hearing what we've made for you. We truly couldn't do this without you. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
What is your identity?
Identity can be many things. It can be your race, your ethnic background, your faith, your spirituality, your gender, how you identify amongst your friends. That's something that I learned growing up, is really being comfortable with my own identity. Being a biracial kid, growing up with my native culture and my Mexican ancestry, really understanding how I can embrace and celebrate and honor both cultures.
Welcome to A Kid's Book About, the podcast. I'm Matthew. I'm a teacher, a librarian, and I'm your host. The voice you heard at the top of our show was Taboo from Black Eyed Peas. Each week we talk about the big things going on in your world with a different author from our A Kid's Book About series.
Hi, my name is Taboo Nawasha, also known as Jimmy Gomez, government name. But most of all, I'm proud to be Jamie's husband, Jet, Journey, and Jalen and Josh's dad. And I'm so proud to be representing not only for my family, but also for Indigenous voices across the world. I'm a proud Native American and Mexican, and I'm so proud to share this amazing book. And I am the author of A Kid's Book About Identity.
We've talked a lot about identity on this podcast, but we've never devoted an entire episode to it. As Taboo mentioned at the beginning, your identity is how you fit into or stand out from different groups of people. And how you identify today might not be how you identify always. In fact, the more we get to know ourselves and the more experiences that we have in life, the more our identity might change or become more clear to you and to others.
I think it's a process of growth and understanding. A lot of mixed kids like myself, we are confused, which is a natural situation that, as time goes by, you start really connecting with your roots and your ancestry. Sometimes you start connecting with people that may educate or inform you about other things that you embrace as your identity. Like, for example, when I met my bandmates, will.i.am and Apple, we were like-minded kids at 17 years old. And together as a group called Black Eyed Peas, we found our identity in the music world, in the music space, as dancers, as music producers, as songwriters, as creatives.
Listeners, I've got to take you back before we continue forward to a time when I myself was around the age of 17. I was in high school, my hair was bleached blonde, and my ears were pierced. I would skateboard from time to time with my friends, and I played bass guitar and sang in a punk rock band. I had great friends who shared lots of the same interests, and we would go together to see bands play. And because I lived right outside of Baltimore in Washington, D.C., there were always really great bands coming through. Of all the shows and festivals, I loved going to the Warped Tour. That was a music and skate festival with all sorts of different kinds of people and different interests. But we all came together around skateboarding and music. And that is when I first saw Black Eyed Peas. I mentioned that to Taboo before getting into talking about whether or not we control our identity, or if it's a mix of how we're born, how we're raised, our community, and other factors.
You learn how to embrace, I wouldn't say control. Controlling is it's a harsh word for me. Just like I don't say diversity, I say a mosaic of culture, because a lot of corporations will say, we need diversity. I rather say I want a mosaic of culture because it's more beautiful. And when I think about control, it's like you're controlling somebody. I think control can be let go, and you can say you embrace and you understand. And as you go along, you're able to learn and inform and educate yourself. Man, I'm still educating myself. At 46 years old, I'm still trying to learn information and be a student of the world of life. I learn from my kids. I learn from my wife. I learned from you. Just speaking to you right now, I learned that you're a skater that, was part of the whole culture of the Warped Tour experience. That's when I met some of my iconic figures like Caballero and, Hosoi and Tony Hawk and those guys that were putting it down back in the day, Lance Mountain, the Powell Peralta guys. Like, that's what the community was about, was embracing. And that's why I like to use the word embrace your identity or grab a hold of understanding who you are, because It's beautiful when you're able to have a cultural exchange, just like we had right now. You talked about skating and hip hop and how 411 videos were a huge asset for us to be able to have our music, our first album be played in the skater community and embraced by the skater community.
You contain multitudes. That means you are not just any one thing. You are the combination of many, many experiences and thoughts and ideas and accomplishments and yet to be named things. And you don't ever need to be everything or anything all at once. You've probably already started discovering this, as did that grown-up near you, and they're probably still discovering. But there are different times and different spaces where you lean more heavily into certain parts of your identity. Being a podcaster who makes shows for kids like you, I am constantly tapping into my identity as a teacher and as a school librarian. As for Taboo?
For me, being a kid of Mexican descent, not really knowing that part of my life, because I didn't really connect with my grandfather. My grandfather was not part of my life. My biological father was not part of my life. So the only connection I had was to my grandmother, who was a strong Native woman from Jerome, Arizona. And so a lot of time I was trying to figure out what's the representation of that part of me. I will always embody it. And I knew that the culture was so beautiful because I was born in East Los Angeles, and it was a predominantly Mexican-American community. But then you also had immigrants coming from Mexico who really didn't speak English, or, it was a cultural, I guess you can say, culture shock sometimes to understand that part of me. But as I became a little older, my mom, she met a man from Mexico, and I started learning more about the Mexican culture. And so I leaned heavy on my native culture because that's what my grandmother was about. She was about empowerment. She was about, pride for Jerome, Arizona and her roots. And then when my mom got with Julio, which is my mom's boyfriend, I started learning more about Mexican culture from Mexico.
Before we go to break, I want to ask you to think about your identity. What are the first 5 words that come to mind when you think about how you describe yourself to others? Those first 5 words might turn into 15 or 25 words, and that's awesome. Go with it. And if you feel comfortable sharing, share some of your words with a grown-up or a friend that's listening with you. Let them know that these words represent parts of your identity. Then listen as they share. No judgment, only discovery and validation and gratitude for sharing. Pause the show if you need to. That's always okay to do. These discussions are some of the most important things you can make time for in your life. When you're ready, let's think about how you feel about your identity or parts of your identity. Here's Taboo.
Makes me feel proud, man. I can honestly say every time, like, for example, I posted about the book on my Instagram, and to see, relatives from Indian country, a lot of Native people that maybe they're living res life on Indian reservation communities, and they're looking for an outlet to be able to inspire the kids to hold on to dreams and aspirations and have heroes that can be solid role models that are representing for Native people, Indigenous people around the world. And our book is that conduit. our book, a book about identity, gives people the sense of hope. It gives people a sense of purpose because they're like, yo, that's one of us. That's a native guy out there inspiring our youth to hold on to dreams and aspirations through the vehicle of embracing and loving your identity and being proud of where you come from, no matter what your situation is. And a lot of times we have, lack of hope and we have disconnect. And something that I'm very keen on is, how do I connect with the youth? How can I empower the youth? Because it's important. I'm a father. I want my kids to be inspired, just like I want millions of kids to be inspired.
We'll be back in a minute with more from Taboo, including the song he wrote and recorded exclusively for this book, right after this quick break. The news can be heavy. World events can be confusing. But no one should miss out on history as it's being made. It's not always easy to know how to talk about what's going on in the world or even to know where to start. Introducing Worth Noting, a kids podcast about current events. Join me each week for a look at what's going on in the world and how it impacts you and others. From scientific breakthroughs to historic achievements, from political upheaval to social justice. The more we understand the history that's taking place in front of our eyes, the better we can see where we stand in it. My name's Matthew, and this is Worth Noting.
Here at A Kids Company About, we make podcasts, but also books, classes, and even more for kids and families just like yours. We've got a couple new and upcoming books in our Little Book About Board book series, embracing toddlerhood's most essential topics. Here's one of our authors sharing a sneak peek.
Hey, my name's Alicia, and I'm the author and illustrator of A Little Book About Grit, a new book in the series about what it means to never give up and how that superpower supercharges your growth. Learn more about A Little Book About Grit by visiting akidsco.com.
Welcome back to A Kid's Book About, the podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about identity with a Kid's Book About author, Taboo. And making this book with Taboo, that special person, his hero, his grandmother. She could have nearly been listed as co-author. So great was her influence on him.
We really tapped into a very descriptive and detailed inspiration from the time that I was in my grandmother's living room to growing up, meeting my crew, finding my identity within my crew, but then ultimately, meeting the love of my life, my wife, and having these amazing kids and, finding my love and my passion as a writer, as a creative through their eyes and their inspiration. And that's why a kid's book about and a kid's company about is so personal to me, because it's not just me writing a book. It's like, I'm leaving a legacy for my kids to be inspired by. That's the reality, bro. And
you did such a beautiful job in that book of going, this is me as a child. Let me go back to being with you in that age, in this space, and walk through that time together. So that I feel like when our books land really well, it's always that we're just meeting those kids right where they are. So I appreciate you being able to step into that space. It was great.
I live my life through nostalgia and through memories, as far as like tapping into those frequencies of the past, especially with my grandmother, because she was such an integral part to my every aspect of me, from as a performer, as a person that loves to give back to my indigenous communities, to me as respectful to the matriarch system, because my grandmother was a matriarch of my family. Like that type of influence was it dictated my upbringing and the way that I was to become an adult. And that's why just talking about my grandmother, I was lit up. And, I always loved to talk about my grandmother because of the impact. She was my superhero. Like, Bruce Lee, yes, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, freaking, all the movie stars at the time didn't have anything on my grandmother. My grandmother was the ultimate superhero, even Marvel heroes. And I'm writing for Marvel. They don't have anything on my grandmother. That's just how I felt. She was the ultimate superhero without a cape.
I promised you a song, but first I want to give you the context and the inspiration. In A Kid's Book About Identity, Taboo writes, quote, "But identity isn't just formed by easy or fun things. Part of what shapes you is the challenges you've faced. These challenges are like big, scary giants towering over you, trying to take you down. I like to call it fighting giants because even though they may seem impossible to beat, we do have the strength to fight back and to not give in to them." End quote. Let's talk about those giants for a minute.
Yeah, so I had, I could speak on two different times where one of them being as a kid, an obstacle of not being able to, feeling a certain way because I didn't have my father in my life. And as a boy, you want to be able to share those moments with your father. But the reality was that was an obstacle that I felt. But my grandmother lifted me up. My mom lifted me up to the point where, it was an obstacle at first, but I found strength within the matriarch system, as I told you earlier. And so these women, these powerful women were leading my tribe. And I overcame fighting that giant of not having my dad in my life by finding a superhuman, like metaphorically superhuman giant, which was my grandmother. And she was stomping through good times and bad times to lead the way for us. So that was one obstacle. And then another obstacle in 2014, I got sick. I got diagnosed with cancer. So, I physically had to fight this horrible disease. I had to do chemotherapy, and I did that for 12 weeks. There was moments where I wanted to give up, and the giant was trying to win the battle. But as I always do, I went into warrior spirit, and I overcame and I beat this horrible disease. And I'm proud to say that I'm 7 years removed from that time period. So that was another physical giant that I had to overcome. So that's why I was fighting that giant, but I beat it. Powerful. And I survived. I'm here, brother. Yeah. I'm here. I survived it.
The song Fighting Giants is available, and I'll add a link to it in our show notes for this episode. The song lyrics are included in the back of the book, and I'm so excited that I get to play an excerpt for you as we close the episode. But first, I want to end in a space that leaves you ready not only to advocate for yourself and for your identity, but also to work for the protection and respect and visibility of the identities of others.
A lot of times people have a misconception, and I'm speaking about my personal identity. A lot of people have a misconception about Native people, whether it's, it's a stereotype, monolithic. We're not monolithic. There's a misconception, especially in Hollywood and on television, about what a certain community, if not all communities, are supposed to be. Fortunately, we have amazing storytellers that are starting to change the narrative, whether it's Marvel, whether we have an animated series called Spirit Rangers, we have Res Dogs on Hulu, and we also have Rutherford Falls on Peacock, which is an amazing way to change the narrative, but also to exchange culture and really learn. Because a lot of times it's about being misinformed, especially about appropriation and not knowing, exactly how to go about informing yourself so that you are not naive or ignorant to the fact that, Native people are still here. We have a term, invisible no more. And I'm glad that you said about invisible, because a lot of times we are, as this CNN once said, something else. They put up classes like Latino, Asian, African-American, and they're like something else. It's 6%. So, it's funny, but it's real because it's about self-awareness and empathy and respect and understanding. But you won't understand unless you share information and educate yourself. And that's something I never get offended. I like to inform and educate and learn from each other because a lot of times, like I said, it's ignorance, not knowing. It's just not knowing. And whether it's people wearing hairdresses and wearing war paint at a football game and thinking that that's like, you know, it's just mascot, which is a horrible term. We're not mascots. So these are the type of conversations, and whether it's uncomfortable or not, these are the conversations that need to be had just so that we can move forward and really respect. And it's about empathy, as I mentioned to you earlier.
Before we go, one last shout out to Taboo's grandmother. I'm glad we got to learn more about her through this conversation.
Man, it's a beautiful thing. And once again, it goes back to my hero, my grandmother. She was the give back, the ultimate give back. Every opportunity she had, sometimes to her own detriment, of putting others before herself and always wanting to be a beacon of light and hope and inspiration. That's something a value that I took. You know, I learned how to fall into it, because for a while I was kind of trying to figure myself out. But by her grace, by her leadership and her guidance, I was able to embrace that idea of how I can be, once again, a bridge and connect inspiration and motivation for the youth.
Thank you to Taboo, author of A Kid's Book About Identity, for joining us today. You can learn more about this book and others like it by visiting akidsco.com. And don't forget to check out Fighting Giants. Check out the show notes for a link. Let's have a quick listen.
We all got a voice to say. I just want to say to you, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright. So I'm gonna keep on fighting giants, no matter how big, how strong, how tall. Just give me one good reason I can make them fall. See everything you put between us, I'm standing outside your fortress walls, and I'm gonna keep on fighting giants till I make them fall. Let me tell you about a world I know.
If you want to be on a future episode of A Kid's Book About the podcast, or if you have a question you'd like us to consider, have a grown-up email us at listen@akidspodcastabout.com, and we'll send you the details. A Kid's Book About the podcast is written, edited, and produced by me, Matthew Winner, with help from Chad Michael Snavely and the team at Sound On Studios. Our executive producer is Jelani Memory, and this show was brought to you by A Kid's Podcast About. Follow the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found, and check out other podcasts made for kids just like you by visiting akidsco.com. Join us next week for a conversation about creativity with A Kid's Book About authors Sarah and Stuart Scott Curran. Hi, this is Matthew, and I'm head of podcasts at A Kid's Company About. We hope you enjoyed this show, and we'd love for you to check out our growing library of shows at A Kid's Podcast About. Whether you're looking for storytelling with crafts and activities, fact-finding with experts and enthusiasts, or looking to explore and understand your world better, we have got a podcast for you. Check out the A Kid's Podcast About channel on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found, or visit akidsco.com.